Hello and welcome to Fox Gaming. Today we're playing a 150 point game between the Dead of Dunharrow and the Dwarves of Khazad-Dum. This is the board we are playing on. Let's have a look at the armies. The Dead of Dunharrow will have 10 models, 3 with spear, 3 with shield, 2 with nothing and 2 with spear and shield. They don't need a leader to field a company or an army rather, so they will just have those models. The dwarves will be led by a captain and he will have 3 dwarf warriors with bow, 3 with shield and 3 with two-handed axe. In this scenario the rules are pretty simple. The only goal is to control the chest so we can go off with the loot inside. When one of the armies are broken, we need to roll a die. On a 1 or a 2, the game may suddenly end, and that is at the end of the turn. When the battle ends, the army that has the most amount of models within 3 inches of the chest will be the winner of the scenario. For deployment, there will be a random deployment rolling a die. On a 1, the model don't come in. On a 2, it's over here, 3 over here, 4 and 5 and 6 you can choose. Alright, so let's get into it. Priority for the first turn will go to the dwarves. That is movement done for the dwarves, and they got in an archer over here, moving half to be able to shoot, and over here as well. 2 of the dwarves come in from this side, making a shield wall over here, and we have 1 dwarf here, 3 including the captain over there, and the last one over there. 1 bowman did not make it onto the board this round. On to deployment for the Dead of Dunharrow. Before moving on to movement for the Dead of Dunharrow, it's important to note that you cannot charge in the turn that you enter the board. So keep that in mind during deployment. The Dead of Dunharrow was not as fortunate as the dwarves and got 4 models not entering this turn. But they got 2 over here, so they outnumber in this corner, and 4 over here. So we will go on to shooting. Starting with the dwarf shooting phase, we'll start with this warrior over here who will fire his bow at the dead on the right, needing a 5 up to hit because he moved. And he misses. This archer over here will fire at the same target, needing 5s. Misses. No combats, so on to priority, turn 2. The blue die is the Dead of Dunharrow. It's a tie, so the Dead of Dunharrow takes it. The movement phase for the dead, these 4 went into combat with this dwarf, and these 2 went into combat with this dwarf. They also got 2 more warrior models coming onto the board, moving on to here. Still 2 that have not come onto the table yet. In the dwarf movement phase, almost all of the dwarves went to the objective, playing the objective in this game. 1 archer moved back to get out of range of these Dead of Dunharrow, and the last warrior with bow came in from this side, moving half so he can shoot. The shooting phase, starting with this dwarf over here, will fire his bow at the one at the end, as the other one is in the way with his own warrior. So they need a 5 up to hit, and he misses. And the next will fire at this one without a shield, needing a 5 up to hit, also misses. Moving on to the fight phase, we have these 2 Dead of Dunharrow fighting against this dwarf, and the Dead of Dunharrow gets a 3 and the dwarf gets a 3 also. The dwarf wins on fight value and will make strikes against the one without a shield, needing a 6 to kill him. And he gets it! The warrior of the dead is dead again. In the next fight, this dwarf will fight with a regular weapon. He sets the bar and he gets a 1. And the dead ones get a 3, winning the fight. They have a strength of 3 and they strike against the courage value of the dwarf, which is 4. So they need 5s to kill him. And they get 1 6 and 1 5. So the dwarf is dead. Priority for the next turn goes to the Dead of Dunharrow. In the movement phase for the dead, these 4 went in closer to the objective to take the fight to the dwarves. One of the models not on the board yet went in from this table edge. Over here we have a warrior went into combat with this dwarf, trying to avenge his brother in death. Over here, these 2 Dead of Dunharrow moved in closer to the archer, but couldn't quite get there. And the last warrior of the dead entering the flank on this side. In the dwarves' movement phase, they try to get some favorable fights before the rest of the dead enters the fray. Over here we have a 2 against 2 with the dwarf captain and a 2 against 2 with regular warriors, and 2 against 1, sorry, on both of these combats, and 2 against 2 on this combat over here. We also have this combat with the dwarf, as we previously recorded, and the other dwarf warriors will stand still to fire their bows. Starting with this dwarf over here, he will shoot his bow into this guy, and he needs a 4 up to hit because he stood still, but he misses. And this warrior will also fire at the one that is between his brother, and he scores a hit. Strength of 3 against a defense of 7, so he will need 6s to kill him. No, not good enough. Moving on to the fight phase, starting with this combat over here, and the dwarf gets a 6 and the dead a 5, losing the fight and have to back away. This warrior of the dead has a shield, and so he has a defense of 8, which means that the dwarf will need 6s by 4s to kill him. And that will be tough. He gets the 6, can he get the 4? Can he kill the dead? He does! In the next fight we have a 2 versus 2, and the dwarves will set a bar, and they get a 2, so this is the moment where the Dead of Dunharrow may strike back. They get a 2 also and loses on fight value, devastating for the Dead of Dunharrow. As before, this dead has a shield and has then a defense of 8, which means the dwarves will need 6s by 4s to kill him. Can they do it? Oh no, not good enough. In the next fight we have a dwarf with shield and a dwarf with 2-handed weapon against a Dead of Dunharrow with shield and spear. And the Dead of Dunharrow sets the bar. He gets a 5. Next we have the shield, gets a 4, and the 2-handed axe, swinging 2-handedly of course, gets a 2, so they lose the fight. The dead needs 5s to kill and will direct its attacks against the 2-handed weapon, and gets a 2, so that is not good enough. And the last fight this turn will be the Dead of Dunharrow against the captain and a 2-handed weapon dwarf. And the Dead of Dunharrow sets the bar, he gets a 2. The captain gets also 2 and wins automatically on fight value. The captain has a strength of 4, but still needs 6s to win the spearman. Can he do it? No! And the dwarf with the 2-handed axe, normally needing 6s, but because of the 2-handed, only needs 5s. Can he finish him off? He does, and the Dead of Dunharrow is dead. Priority for the next turn goes to the dwarves. In the movement phase of the dwarves, they tried to strategically pick out some models to destroy. Over here, the captain and 2 warriors trapped this model. And over here there's a 2 versus 2 and a 1 versus 1. The dead have yet to move, however, so we'll see how that works out in the end. This archer probably will not have any target, so he moved full towards the objective. And over here, these 2 archers moved back to bait the Dead of Dunharrow to get off the objective. Let's see what the response is. So the Dead of Dunharrow have moved, and this warrior went into combat over here to get 3 one-on-one fights. These 2 ignored the archers and went for the objective, which I think is a good idea. And the last warrior went into combat with the archer, so that they are not a threat in the long run. No shooting, so straight into the fight phase. As the dwarves have priority, they choose which fights to do first. And they will choose this one over here. The Dead of Dunharrow feels the pressure now and will use the shielding rule to try to fend off the attacks. 2 attacks for him, and he needs a high number here, and he gets a 5. Strong start. Two-handed weapon of the dwarves, needing a 6 because of -1 because of his weapon, and he doesn't get it. 2 attacks from the captain, and he gets 6, so they win the fight. Because the warrior was trapped, they double their attacks against him, and the dwarf captain then gets 4 attacks, needing 6s to kill, and he gets 1/6, which means that the Dead of Dunharrow is gone. Next, we have a one-on-one over here, starting with the dwarf, and he gets a 1, and the Dead of Dunharrow gets a 3, winning with good margin, needing 5s to kill. And he gets it! 1 dwarf bites the dust. Next, we have another one-on-one combat, and the dwarf will strike double-handed, or two-handed as it's called. And he gets a 4, which is turned down to a 3, and the dead guy gets a 5, winning the fight. Needing 5s to kill, and gets a 2. This fight over here, the dwarf sets the bar, and he gets a 4, and the Dead of Dunharrow gets also 4, but loses on fight value and has to back away. 6s by 4s to kill. No. And the last fight over here, the Dead of Dunharrow sets the bar and gets a 6, and the dwarf needs a 6 here to tie it. No, doesn't get it. 5 up, and the dwarf is dead. And he's dead. For a moment there, it looked kind of grim for the Dead of Dunharrow, but they come back and kill 2 dwarves, so it's still a fight to remember. Priority for the next round goes to the dwarves. Sorry, I meant the Dead of Dunharrow. Alright, so the dwarves outnumber the Dead of Dunharrow, but they try their best, tying up 1 model each. This dwarf has yet to move, and over here we also have a combat initiated by the Dead of Dunharrow. So this dwarf will just move 5 inches towards his friends and will move into the fight phase. Starting in the back over here, the Dead of Dunharrow will go first, and he gets a 6, and the dwarf gets also 6, winning on fight value. That dead one does not have a shield, so a straight up 6s to kill him. No! Next, these 2 will fight, and the Dead of Dunharrow gets a 5, and the dwarf 4. 5 up to kill. No! Next, we have this fight with the two-handed axe dwarf, and the Dead of Dunharrow sets the bar and gets a 6, which means he wins automatically. 5s to kill the dwarf. Can he do it? No. Next, we have the dwarf captain against a dead one, and the Dead of Dunharrow gets a 3, and the dwarf with his 2 attacks also gets a 5 and winning with a good margin. Needing 6s to kill him because of his strength of 4. Nope. That's not good enough. Next, we have this fight over here, a dwarf against a dead one, and the dwarf gets a 4, and the dead 2. No shield on him, so the dwarf needs 6s. Nope, not good enough. And the last fight over here, the dwarf will use his two-hander, and the Dead of Dunharrow goes first and gets a 3, so he will need a 4 more to get it. Yes, he does. Or he do. Normally, he needs 6s by 4s because of the shield, but he has a two-hander, so that will be 5s by 3s. So first 5s, and he gets it. Can he also get a 3? He does, and he is dead. So, the state of the game at this point, the Dead of Dunharrow has lost half of their starting numbers, but they're not quite broken yet. If 1 more of them dies, they will need to start to take courage test, and the game may suddenly end. Looking good for the dwarves so far, but we will see how things work out. Priority goes to the dwarves. Alright, so the dwarves moved into combat over here, and they have priorities. They can choose which combat goes first. This is 1 trapped dead, and over here we have 2 against 1 and 1 against 1. The reason for this is that if the game will end now, they will need more models within 3 inches of the objective than the enemy. So that is why they moved up there. Starting with the fight over there, the Dead of Dunharrow sets the bar and he gets a 4 and the dwarf 5. Needing 6s to kill? No! Next, the dwarves starts to fight in this combat where they have a trapped Dead of Dunharrow, and starting with the dead, they get a 1, which means they lose automatically. I totally forgot that he was supposed to be shielding, so he gets 1 more attack. And also a 1, poor guy. So, starting with the attacks of the bowman, needing 6s by 4s to kill the dead guy. And he gets 1 6, can he get a 4? No! And strikes for the two-handed weapon, needing 5s by 3s to kill. And he gets 1 5, can he get a 3? He does! And the dead one is super dead. Next, we have 2 against 1, and the Dead of Dunharrow will not be shielding because they need to kill some stuff. Because they are now below 50%, so they must start killing. And he gets a 2, and the dwarves get 4. One of the dwarves needs 6s by 4s to kill, and nope. And the other one needs 5s by 3s. Nope. Lastly, this fight's over here. The dwarf sets the bar and gets a 5, and the Dead of Dunharrow a 4. No shield on that guy, so the dwarf needs 6s to kill. And he gets it. Alright, so the Dead of Dunharrow are below 50%. There are only 3 models remaining. Will the dwarves win on a roll on a 1 or a 2? Let's see. Nope, the game continues for another turn. And priority goes to the Dead of Dunharrow. All of the courage tests were passed by the Dead of Dunharrow, and this one ignoring this archer for now, moving closer to the objective. And over here, 2 of them went into combat. Let's see what the dwarves are up to. So the dwarves went into combat, getting some favorable fights in the middle. And over here, the archer moved after the Dead of Dunharrow, but could not charge because he didn't see him. Starting with this fight over here, the captain starts and he gets a 5. The Dead of Dunharrow gets a 3, so they lose. There were room to back away, so no doubling attacks. Starting with the dwarf captain, needing 6s to kill. No. And the two-handed weapons, needing 5s by 3s. No. And the last warrior needing 6s by 4s. Nope. And the last combat 1 against 1, and the Dead of Dunharrow gets a 3 and the dwarf gets a 6. Needing 6s by 4s to kill. Nope. That is the end of the turn, and we need to roll to see if the game ends. On a 1 or a 2, it does. Nope, another turn. Priority goes to... I think the dwarves? Yes, the dwarves, because the Dead of Dunharrow had it last time. And the dwarves have utterly surrounded the 2 remaining in the center of the board and went into combat over here so they could not move closer to the objective. Let's go into the fight phase. Starting over here, the dwarf will set the bar and he gets a 5, and the dead a 6, winning the fight. 5 or 6, the dwarf is dead. And it is. Next, we have 2 dwarves against 1 Dead of Dunharrow, and the dwarf sets the bar and gets... Oh! They get a 6, so doesn't need to roll anymore, and he loses the fight and has to back away. 6s by 4s to kill. No, double 1s. Next, the dead guy will make strikes, or will roll first. That gets a 1, and he loses automatically, and he's trapped also. Starting with the captain, he will need 6s to kill. 4 attacks, and he gets the 6, so this one is dead. Whoa! That marks the end of another turn, so on a roll of 1 or 2, the game ends. And it does. The dwarves are victorious in this battle for the chest. Congratulations to Durin's folk.
This is it for now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content like this. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with our latest videos and be a part of our growing community. We appreciate your support and it encourages us to create more valuable content. So go ahead, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you in the next video.